2, 1.
Welcome to Made for More Living.
One small step for man.
With Johnny Jennings.
Kick the tires and light the fires, Big Daddy.
The fastest and most exciting hour of news, events, and real estate in Northern California.
And this is a fact that was proved.
Powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Get ready. Here we go.
So, Matt, you're probably going to make fun of me for what I'm about to say, but this episode I've honestly been thinking about. I was thinking about it all last night, all this morning, and my number one goal getting through today's show is to not cry.
Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh. I am really excited. I have no idea what we're talking
really
about.
excited?
But hold on a second. Let me go get a box of tissues. Do
Give
you
me a
need
box
some
of
tissues?
Yep.
Because the worst thing I like seeing is a grown man with snot running down his nose because he's so emotional.
No, so what I joke with Valerie all the time, hey, you know what? You're never going to see me cry, but I do cry. I'll just cry by myself.
Did your wife tell you that you guys are moving to Texas?
Oh, my gosh. that is
why
not.
We're going to have a cry fest here
man.
today?
That probably would make him cry.
Yeah, that would probably
Did
make
you
Christine
watch The
cry, too.
Notebook last night or something?
No. So something that we get to do as real estate agents, and it's so exciting, is help people move into their first home. It's like the next phase of their adult life. Oftentimes, as they've gone through college, or they've worked hard. Maybe they didn't go to college, but they worked hard, and now they're excited to be able to buy that first home. And then we help people move from their second home to their next home, move out of state. Like there's all these moves that take place in a person's life. But today we are talking about the final move. The move where, see, it's already getting me. The move where they're going to die, essentially. And so on the show today we have Christine G. I apologize, I cannot pronounce the name. Christine G. with Senior Care Solutions. And so thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
Christine, being in the profession that you're in, obviously Johnny could not hack it because he'd be
absolutely
emotional.
not. Yeah.
Do you find yourself getting emotional on a regular basis and crying, or do you try to keep a level head because you're supposed to be the person of reason and taking care of responsibilities?
Yeah, I try to keep it together with the families that I'm dealing with, but there's often times where I go into the car and the tears come.
Oh, wow.
Because this...
can you give us an example?
Yeah. I think some of the most difficult clients are where the person's a little bit younger, and they're struggling with dementia, and family who may not have the resources to pay for the care that they want them to have. Or, there's just so many stories that we've seen over the years where the family's breaking down and I'm trying to hold it together for them. Or maybe it's an end of life. That we're really close to the end. And sometimes we're the first people who talk about, have you had the conversation about putting your loved one on hospice? And just hearing that word sometimes is really emotional for the family, but they know sometimes it's what needs to happen.
Wow, yeah. I'm like Johnny. I don't think I could do it. It'd be so emotionally draining because I would be invested in every family and I'd carry that weight. And
some nights are hard at the end of the day if we've had a lot of really tough clients. But then the flip side is, what I think helps us keep doing it every day is, the stories where we've made life so much easier, so much better during this difficult journey. And we get those kudos all the time.
Yeah. So you have a job where you get to help people. So there's that emotional drain that it's tough, but at the other end, you get to help them and serve. And so there's a lot of reward in that, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
And so before we get too far into the show, I do want to clarify that everything that Christine provides and Senior Care Solutions provides is free of charge. So if you're hearing us talk about the services that her company and she helps with, don't be thinking, hey, I can't afford that. That won't work for me. That won't work for my situation. Everything she does is free. It's free 99. So please listen. Please share this with family members if you know anybody that's going through this. But basically, we've talked a little bit about, the sadness behind it and the situations you're in. But people are probably wondering, what is it you do? You mind just explain a little bit about what it is your role is, your
Absolutely.
job?
So the company Senior Care Solutions, we've been in business, we'll be celebrating 28 years in January. Wow. I've been with the company almost 18. So what we do is we help families navigate the whole senior care journey. So that can be anything from helping them find in-home care resources to a lot of what we do is finding senior care and senior living options for them when they can no longer remain at home. Yeah. We do a lot of education in the community. We give back a lot. I'm on the board of the Parkinson's Association. We work a lot with the Alzheimer's Association, Delaware Caregiver Resource Center, but we connect families and help them navigate this journey to make it as simple as possible for them.
Because it's scary. This is like the final move. I don't know how many homes I've gone in where it's typically the wife and she's by herself. And there might be some kids helping her out, but typically they're moving her out of this home into, the end of life situation. She may be healthy, she may be fine.
Right.
He may be healthy, he may be totally with it, but they're just either they don't want to live or they can no longer they're no longer safe living by themselves. And so we go into these situations and it is scary because there's like hundreds of different...
Hundreds, yeah. So in Sacramento County, there's well over 500 licensed care facilities, anywhere from smaller residential care homes to larger assisted living. Placer County, it's 200 to 300. So in our area, there's literally 800 to 1,000 care options just to consider, and so people don't know where to start.
But just because there's 1,000, that's not 1,000 good ones,
right?
Right.
Exactly.
How many would you say? Like, how many do you typically refer to out of that? Like, percentage-wise, would you say is it 10%'s really good, or
probably because there's as I say, there's something for everyone. I might like a facility for my mom, but it might not be what's best for your mom. So there's probably 30% that we would refer to. Okay. We're aware of all the options, but we definitely know the ones that would be a preference. So,
in fact, I connected you with somebody in Roseville. She had fallen, she'd injured herself. He's totally fine, and she's on the road to recovery. But they're seeing the writings on the wall, and so they're wanting to preemptively move into a care facility, a more active care facility.
Right.
And so they're interviewing and they're reaching out to people, and that's where you would call Christine. You'd say, "Hey, Christine, this is what I'm looking for," and because you work with all these different facilities,
Absolutely.
you know exactly where to place them. It's like a real estate agent, but for care facilities.
Exactly.
And similar to a real estate agent, you're not typically paying the real estate agents when you buy the home, right? Typically, it's the seller that's paying that fee.
Right.
When you move into these care facilities, that's how Christine is able to offer this for free. Those care facilities are the ones compensating her.
Right.
But even if, and this is what I love about Christine, even if they're not going to compensate you and it's the right fit for that person or that family, you still place them.
Absolutely. Yeah. We contract with almost all the care facilities in the area, but there is a small percent that don't contract with anyone because they're nonprofits or whatever it may be. And we still refer there if it's the right fit. So we know that ultimately doing the right thing for the families comes back, and that's what we want for the clients. So. And
so situations that I've run into are it's typically the mom. The mom has been living by herself for a few years.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden the kids start seeing things change, and things are changing more rapidly than they were even aware of. They may fly in, they may start spending more time with mom. They're like, "Oh my gosh, she's her mental state has deteriorated more than they were aware of."
Right.
So at what point, is there ever a point that's too early to contact you, or what point should they reach out to Christine?
Yeah, we love families who are proactive and start looking ahead of time and being prepared for those crisis situations because, inevitably a lot of the calls we get are in a crisis, and that's not the best time to make decisions. But
what would be a crisis situation?
So, I think about my mom a little bit in this scenario, and I'll try not to cry myself, but we, during right before COVID and then at the beginning of COVID, we saw her cognitive status changing. And, us in the profession tend to be a little bit more in denial when it's our own family member. But my husband and I were talking, and we, especially the first 6 to 9 months of COVID, seeing her decline because of the isolation. She was living in her own home, a mobile home in a senior community, but nobody was conversing anymore.
Yeah.
And and sometimes the crisis happens and it can be a little bit of a blessing. So in our scenario, she had a minor stroke and she was very resistant to leaving her home. But at that point, we used that, although she was, it didn't impair her a lot, but it impaired her enough we knew she was not safe to go back home. Mm-hmm. And we used that crisis to get her to agree to go to assisted living. And she was very still resistant, as most people are, but within 2 to 3 months, she had acclimated, made friends, and was doing really well and started to call it home.
Wow.
And the miracle of that was we took her into her neurologist and her cognitive scores went up.
Wow.
And he was like, this is really strange. I didn't think it was strange. She was now getting 3 good, proper meals a day. She was getting her medications timely. She was getting social interaction. So for her and for many of our clients, it becomes a really positive thing. But it's hard initially to see that. So
yeah, I can't imagine like if that day ever comes for me psychologically. Okay, Johnny, I just can't live by myself anymore. And then knowing that hey, the end is around the corner, that has to play and have an influence on why they don't want to leave the home.
Sure.
A little bit in denial. So you have a great story of somebody who reached out to you. I believe his wife had early onset dementia, and this was but he was like, hey, I want to get this handled up front.
Sure.
Can you share a little bit about that story?
Yeah. So he was a working attorney, and his wife was diagnosed with early onset dementia at 59. Wow. He contacted me, came and met with me, and he said, I just know there's a lot I don't know and how I'm going to go through this journey. And we walked that journey together for almost 6 years. So we initially brought in home care so he could continue to work. He tried adult daycare, and that lasted for a while, brought her back to just in-home care. But all through that journey, he was looking at care facilities because he knew there would come a day.
Yeah.
And the beauty of it was he was prepared. So he called me 6 years later. We had been talking the whole time. And he said, today's the day. He said, last night I came home. She didn't know who I was, and she got violent with me. But he already knew where he wanted her to go, and we just had to institute and get her over to the care facility that he had already chosen. The sad and full circle part of that was I recently this year got a call from his ex-wife, who is his responsible party. They remained really dear friends after they divorced, and he now needed my assistance. So,
wow.
We do this journey with families often more than once, for in-laws or sometimes the own person who helped place their family member. So,
man. But that just speaks to, again, you don't have to call Christine while you're at the hospital or right after a stroke has happened. Contact her up front if you see things going on with your family members
starting to change.
And starting to change. Mm-hmm. What are some early signs that you could share with people who are I think my family member might have an issue, or they might be having some decline in mental health? Mm-hmm. What are some tells that you could suggest to us?
Yeah, I think, oftentimes we start seeing our family members tell us the same story over and over. Start having a little bit difficult time remembering to make it to doctor's appointments or to take their medications properly. I think that was one thing I was really concerned about with my mom is she taking her meds every day? So I would do her medication trays, but I'd pop in throughout the week and make sure that, Tuesday's medications were taken when I visited on Thursday. So there's a lot of little things. And, looking back, sometimes we don't want to accept those as we're seeing them. But yeah, a lot of it is just, you telling them you're popping by the next day and them forgetting that you had told them that. So little things like that, and start wanting to maybe get that evaluated by the primary care doctor initially.
So are there a cognitive test where they can establish a baseline?
Yeah. Okay. So there's a couple different ones. One's a mini mental status exam. One's they call it a MOCA. And it's typically a 30-question, very simple screening tool that they use, but it gives a baseline of how the person's doing cognitively. So okay. So if you have any doubts, have them perform the cognitive test, and in the worst case scenario, you have a baseline,
Best case scenario, you have a baseline. Worst case, it's like, hey, this is more advanced than we thought it was.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then two, the important part, and it's difficult because we don't want to brand somebody, but getting an early diagnosis is important because there is some medications that can slow the process of somebody with a cognitive impairment. So.
Okay. And so when we come back, we are going to be talking about hospital ejections, and how Christine can help.
Thinking about selling your home? Want to put it on the market, but you don't want to go through all of that staging, open houses, those much needed repairs? There's an easy and simple way to do it. Just reach out to Johnny Jennings and the Tom Daves team with Made for More Realty. Here's what'll happen. They'll get you at least 3 cash offers on your home in as-is condition. Sound too good to be true? They've been doing it for a lot of our listeners, and they can do it for you. All you got to do is Google Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty today and get more for your home.
This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
So we're back with Christine with Senior Care Solutions, and in the previous segment we were talking about how, first off, her services are free. If you are using Christine and Senior Care Solutions and you have any questions, everything is free. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Please just reach out and get those questions answered for free.
Nothing is free. So how are you guys funded?
So 2 ways. One is that if we do place somebody in a care facility, they pay us a referral fee. The other way is we do have a second division to our company, which helps people who are on Medi-Cal through a program called the Assisted Living Waiver Program. And so we are a care coordinating agency through the state of California.
Okay.
And through that Medi-Cal program, they do pay us for those clients that we care manage that are in that program. So
Nice.
But just to be clear, even if the facility is not going to compensate Christine and it's the right fit, Christine will still place them there.
Absolutely.
So don't worry about that. Just get the information. Like when I have this conversation with families, there's an information void,
Right.
and they just don't know who to turn to. They don't know, like, hey, do I chat GPT it? Do I Google it? Do I call? And then they get stuck in a call tree, and it's a vacuum. And so problem solved. Just reach out to Christine. If you'd like her contact information, just go ahead and contact us at Made for More. Just go to Made for More Living, and we will connect you directly with Christine. We don't charge anything to connect you with her. It's just, this is free. We want to make sure that people in this stage of life are getting taken care of, because unfortunately they are preyed upon, and that is not, that's reprehensible.
And can I just real quick on something you mentioned? A lot of people turn to Google and Google Senior Care. And, we're a local agency who's been doing this locally for almost 28 years. And, there's a lot of online agencies, and they work very differently. They may have never stepped foot into a local community or care facility, but they present really well online. People fill out their information. They think they're going to get, just a list of facilities. And sometimes they end up getting a list of 30 facilities. Some may be appropriate, some may not. But they also have their information sent out and start receiving 20 to 30 phone calls.
Oh, my gosh.
So we really caution people if they are looking to not necessarily turn to an online agency because, again, they're going to get personalized assistance. We tour the facilities. We know what's happening on a local level. So
that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yep. So reach out to Christine at Senior Care Solutions. If you need that information, you can get it from madeformorerealty.com. But what we want to talk about, I was calling them ejections, but apparently the word is discharges. And so you're speaking on Medi-Cal earlier. If somebody is in a hospital for a situation and now they have to go home, the hospital says, hey, you got to, or maybe you can't go home, but you can't stay here, right?
Right.
Can you walk us through that situation for families that have experienced that or maybe are potentially going to experience that?
Yeah. So, and it can look a couple different ways. It can be somebody goes to the emergency room, they had a fall, they may be told that, you have something going on, but it's not enough to admit you to the hospital. So you need to be discharged, home or somewhere else. And so oftentimes, the other scenario is they've been in the hospital, but now they're stable and the hospital says you have to discharge today or tomorrow. Or you're now made that decision that the person is going to go on hospice. So regardless, in the hospital, once you're made that hospice decision or you're stable, they want you out right away.
So that's interesting. The hospital won't keep you on hospice.
Once you're on hospice, they want you out because you technically don't go on hospice until you're discharged. But once you made that decision, they want you out because there's no longer curative measures they're going to be working on. So, and they can't have you stay in the hospital on hospice because then you're double dipping with Medicare. So it gets really technical. There's a few exceptions to that. So,
and just for those who may not know, like, what is hospice?
So hospice is when the doctor reasonably believes you have 6 months or less to live. So then you're shifting to quality of care or quality of life versus quantity of life. So when you make the decision to go on hospice, it usually means that you're making the decision to no longer try to cure whatever's going on with you, whether it's cancer or, a serious heart disease, but you want to have comfort measures for that last period of your life. And so a hospice agency will step in and start providing pain control, anxiety control, symptom management, but not curative care. So it's kind of stopping the treatment and shifting to being comfortable. And so it's a decision that the doctors make, but then the family has to agree to. I mean, just because the doctor says your loved one reasonably could go on hospice doesn't mean you have to put them on hospice. And it also doesn't mean it's necessarily a 6-month death sentence per se. Some people will graduate from hospice. So my husband's grandma, who I was power of attorney for, the first time she went on hospice, she graduated after 8 months, meaning she became stable after they thought she was going to be passing fairly quickly. She ended up on hospice 3 times before she actually passed away at 98.
Wow.
So
that woman's no quitter.
No, she wasn't. Well, she was ready, but apparently it wasn't her time.
Sure.
So, but other people will go on hospice and at least have that comfort measure in the last few days of their life because they really focus on pain control and comfort measures.
So the issue, though, that when somebody is transitioning from hospital, like, hey, we're trying to cure the disease, to moving to hospice, is the hospital says, hey, you can't stay here anymore. But now the family's like, well, what do I do? Right. And sometimes the hospital, you were sharing, will force certain options on you, or it feels forced.
Right.
And that's why it's good to have you in their corner, because you can help guide them through that process.
Right.
So how does that work?
Yeah. So we get those calls all the time. Actually, yesterday, one of my colleagues got one of those calls. Mom or dad, and I can't remember. I think it was their mom. They had all made the decision to move forward with hospice, so then the hospital's ready to have that person out. So they typically want you out as soon as possible. So we can help advocate. We can help the family with terminology to try to buy a little bit of time, and also to give them options, because we personally feel people need more than one option. So we work as a team. That's the other beauty of who we are. It's not we're one person working out of our car. We have a team approach, and we were able to find immediately 2 to 3 options that could take somebody in that very final days, because this is a case where hospice is, looking like the person's pretty imminent. So we can act really quickly, but yet provide guidance and support to make the right decision, because it's such an important decision at that point.
And you bring up a good point, though. When the hospital's discharged and you're saying, hey, this person's going on hospice, here's our one suggestion, and maybe it's not the best suggestion, it's just the one they're pushing on the family. You come in and you're like, hey, no, here are a couple of options. Okay, that's great to have options, but not all care facilities can take somebody.
Right.
And so not only does it have to be a good option for the family, but they have to have the availability to accept that patient.
Exactly. And some of those scenarios are tough because some of the care facilities do not want to take a very short-term client. So that's where our knowledge and our team approach, where we can brainstorm and say, they're looking in this area, here's the situation, and we know the facilities that will take somebody like that. And then, we're checking availability. So we're really helping the family be able to be focused. And here's 2 to 3, 4 options that you can go look at right now that have agreed that they're willing to consider your loved one. So,
man, that's crazy. I didn't realize hospitals would push you out that hard and just suggest one option.
Right. Well, and in all fairness, some hospitals are better than others, and a lot of it is just insurance. It's the insurance will only pay if there's a reason they're in the hospital and getting treatment. So they're under the gun too. So
yeah, and I'm not trying to come down on the hospitals. It just seems like there's a lot of programs out there for pets, for clean air, these are productive people who have been contributing members of society and they're in their final days of life, and it just seems like there'd be more dignity involved there. Like more people should be pushing for that.
Right.
In my opinion.
And that's a big thing for us. Yeah.
So finding placement for difficult situations. You mentioned this is can sometimes be a fast thing, but sometimes there are difficult situations.
Yeah.
You mind sharing an example of maybe a more difficult situation?
Absolutely. And we get this a lot because of our experience. So, I always think of a story. There was a hospital that called me and said, we've had this gentleman in our hospital. So this is the flip side, for 2 months.
Oh, man.
He was admitted for major dementia behaviors, probably with an underlying mental health disorder, which may not have been diagnosed. And so they'd been working to try to get him stabilized on his behaviors for literally, a month and a half to 2 months, and had worked with some other agencies to try to find placement. And
they were unsuccessful.
Oh,
man.
So they reached out to us, and there was some budget constraints too, which make it even more difficult.
Yeah.
But we were able to, because again, our experience, our relationships, there's some facilities that only let us know when they have their openings because they know that we're going to try to get the best fit for them. But because of those relationships, we were able to call and say, let's strategize on this client. Let's see how we can make this successful. And we were able to find a facility within a couple days, and they were able to move him out successfully.
Wow.
So, and
this had been 2 months in the making.
Yeah. And again, some of that is working on medications and stabilizing him, but they'd been working on trying to find placement for quite some time when they contacted us.
Okay, so you can help with those more difficult situations. So what about mental disorders? Like you mentioned that he may have had some of that, but
right.
How does that work if somebody has diagnosed mental
right.
diseases?
It can be even more challenging because some of the restrictions under licensing. So typically if, I have a schizophrenic patient right now, but he does have dementia as well. So trying to find communities willing to take somebody with a mental health diagnosis can be challenging, but we also know how to work that as well. One of the big things I initially said to the family is we need to work with the doctor to try to make sure on his physician's report that the mental health diagnosis is not the primary. Because if it's the primary, they can't necessarily go into a dementia facility. So we know those little caveats. So if we can make sure the mental health diagnosis is not listed as the primary. So in this case, I think they ended up changing it to hypertension or something.
Yeah.
So we're able to work under licensing regulations with facilities to make it happen. And then also sometimes we have to push back and say, we need this person treated and on the right medications before we can get this person placed. So sometimes pushing back.
With the family and the doctors.
And the doctors and the hospital or whatever, wherever they are.
So my concern would be if to use the hypertension example, but they really have advanced schizophrenia, when they move into that facility, how are they going to be? Is that facility going to be able to take care of them adequately?
Right. And that's where we're very transparent with the facilities. When we call and talk to them with a challenging client, here's what the behaviors are, and here's what we've done or they've done to try to treat those behaviors. But, they need to know going in because we really want a successful placement. It's not always 100% because behaviors can change once they go into a facility, but being transparent so they know what they're getting into and having them assess that and really develop a plan on how they're going to deal with that mental health disorder.
So I've heard stories about people who've moved into these facilities and then disease progresses and like they're pulling out their hair, there's feces on the walls, they're combative with the nurses. How does that play out in the long term? Like, do they then need to move to another facility or?
On occasion, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
it really depends on the facility and their ability to deal with some of those behaviors. And there's a handful of really facilities that say, we'll take it, and knowing those, the big constraint is sometimes those situations also have limited funds, and that's where it gets really challenging, because some of those facilities that are willing to take on those really difficult behaviors are some of the most expensive. So mental health, I'll be honest, is probably our most challenging situation.
Got it.
Yeah.
And it's probably not super common, but I do run into that, and I'm sure if I'm running into it, there are a lot of people out there that run into it as well.
Absolutely.
So when we come back, we will be talking about misdiagnosed psychiatric care, geriatric care managers, all these different things that Christine can help with. So it's not just a simple placement in a home. There's a whole suite of services that she provides as well.
So you've probably seen many ads with someone offering to give you all cash for your home sight unseen. Are these guys legit? Can you trust them? I have no idea. I only know of one guy, Johnny Jennings, with the Tom Daves team at Made for More Realty, that's willing to give you at least 3 cash offers on your home in as-is condition. And he's a genuine guy. You can trust him. So all you got to do is Google Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty today and get more for your home.
This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
So we're back with Christine with Senior Care Solutions, and in previous segments we've talked about how her services are free, how she helps place people in care facilities, either doing pre-planning years in advance or last-minute situations, necessitated by hospital discharges, and but that's not all you do, because there's so much more around this final stage of life, this final move. And so obviously this is a real estate show,
right?
But a lot of times these people own homes, and they're moving into these care facilities out of their home. This is their final move, and that's where we would connect people with you, Christine. And those other services, one is a geriatric care manager.
Right.
And I had not heard of this term before, but it sounds incredibly helpful. You mind sharing a bit more about what that role is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I, personally have the title of a certified geriatric care manager, meaning I went through a master's level certificate training program on top of all my other education. But in my work at Senior Care Solutions, we primarily focus on placement and referrals and those types of things. But we often refer, one of the companies we work hand in hand with is a company called Elder Care Management, where their geriatric care managers really do hands-on care management, meaning, we have a scenario right now. I've been helping this family navigate a situation that's been really difficult with their sister. She didn't have any kids, so it's her 2 brothers who live out of state or out of the area. One's in Southern California, one's in Washington. And she had some misdiagnoses, and she has some cognitive issues. And they've been trying to manage it from out of state, and not real effectively, just because they're not here, not that they haven't tried. And so she ended up back in the hospital. I'm looking at and working on the proper placement for her, because she was not placed appropriately out of the hospital the first time. And in the meantime, the 2 brothers have realized that it's just way too much for them to manage her care from a distance. Yeah. So we brought in our partners who are hands-on geriatric care managers, and I always kind of refer to them as like the son or daughter when there is no son or daughter. They can step in, take that person to doctor's appointments, visit them if they are in a care facility or still in their home, report back to the family, do the hands-on care that she needs, bring in concierge doctors if that's something they need, and just really be that hands-on person to make sure they're getting the care and the services that they need. So we worked hand in hand with that organization.
It just sounds like an invaluable service being provided, because sometimes, the kids can't move. They have jobs, they have their own thing going on. Sometimes the parents don't want to move. And then, but so here they are in two different places, but care still needs to happen.
Right.
And that's where these geriatric care managers come in. They can check on mom or dad, make sure that, clothes are clean, house is tidy, medications are being taken, and take them to and from doctor's appointments and
so much more. Just I enlisted one of them who was a friend of mine when we were on a vacation, and my mom ended up in the hospital. And so because I have that relationship, I was able to call them and say, can you go to the hospital and be an advocate for her? Because I couldn't be there and be present. So
even if you could be present, it sounds like these might be good people to have in your corner.
Absolutely. And especially, too, where we see it frequently is when, even if the family is local, but maybe there's family dynamics and they need an unbiased party who really drives the care of their loved one.
So like one person saying, no, mom's fine, the other person saying, no, mom needs help.
Right.
And then this is where the geriatric care manager comes into play and is like, unbiased, neutral third party, hey, this is probably the best route.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you kind of, we talked about maybe talking about conservatorships. So
absolutely.
This is another area where, so sometimes we have clients who maybe don't have family, or they never did proper documents. They didn't have powers of attorney in place, and they suddenly lack capacity. They have a stroke or something has happened. Dementia has progressed suddenly, and they no longer can make their own decisions. So oftentimes we will have to help refer to an elder law attorney for estate planning, or at that point, if there is no estate plan, a conservatorship. Which
so what is that? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's where it's a court determination that the person doesn't, well, it's the doctors and the courts determining that the person doesn't have the ability to make their own decisions, and somebody is appointed as their conservator. So it's somebody who's going to take responsibility and act on their behalf. That can be a family member, and sometimes it can be an impartial conservator, somebody that's a paid conservator, so who can act unbiased.
How long does it take to get the conservatorship?
That can take quite a while, and that's why we so encourage families to have an estate plan with powers of attorney, because once you get the court system involved, it's expensive. So we're hearing conservatorships can cost anywhere from $8,000 to $15,000, depending if there's somebody contesting the conservatorship, and it can take months and months. And in the meantime, that person's left in limbo. Sometimes they can do immediate or emergency conservatorships pending a permanent conservatorship. But again, all of it is a legal process that can take time and money. So
with somebody, once that conservatorship has been granted, can that person then put like trusts and stuff in place for that individual, or is it just...
Yeah, and I'm not an elder law attorney, but it gets a little complicated. They can only do certain things within that conservatorship, but, it gets a little bit more detailed depending on the type of conservatorship that is put in place. So, but the other times that these geriatric care managers come into place is if it's a paid conservator who is acting on that person's behalf. They might hire a geriatric care manager to do the day-to-day overseeing of the care and work closely with the conservators. So that's another time that they're utilized as well.
Got it. So conservatorships, like, whoops, it didn't have a plan in place.
Right.
Reach out to Christine. She can help you get that set up, or connect with somebody who can.
Yeah.
And then, but Medicare, like, it just seems like it's again, talking with other people, it's just a tangled web of like confusion. You get put in call trees, and then all of a sudden the call drops, and you got to start all over again. Can you help people navigate that as well, or can you recommend people?
Yeah, we can definitely recommend folks who are Medicare specialists who help people, especially during this time of year where there's open enrollment. They can kind of look at, who are your doctors, what are the prescriptions you're on, and kind of recommend some Medicare supplements or Medicare Advantage plans, or is a supplement versus an Advantage plan better for your loved one? What are the different different costs. So we definitely can connect folks with that. Also, sometimes it's just as simple as there's a organization called HICAP. It's a state organization, health insurance advocacy program that they can also call, but a lot of times working with a Medicare specialist who's connected with all the different health plans.
Do you happen to know like what that would cost if somebody wanted to hire a medical from Medicare?
So typically the Medicare specialists who help determine plans are paid for by the health plans.
Okay.
So, depending on what health plan you sign up for, they may get some kind of reimbursement that route. So they're typically free.
Okay. So again, we're trying to make this as affordable as possible, because sometimes that if there's a dollar sign in front of a next step, people, delay that next step.
Absolutely.
And then the dollar signs grow.
Right.
The bill always comes due, and the longer you take to pay that bill, the more interest is accruing. So,
absolutely.
So geriatric care managers for people who are out of state, or maybe they moved to Texas, and the moms and dad are still here. They can get that geriatric care manager to help provide assistance. Yep. You can connect them with people who can set up trust, conservatorships, powers of attorney, things like that.
Absolutely.
And then also Medicare specialists. Is there anything, like if somebody is on the fence and they're not sure, should I reach out to Christine? Maybe should I not reach out to Christine? Like, what would you tell that person?
If you're hesitant, just reach out, and if, more than likely, if we can't provide the services, then we can help you find the right person to call. So, we are a free service. We're more than willing to chat with folks and try to determine what their needs are and connect them with the right resources. So.
Got it. So when in doubt, just call Christine.
Just call somebody in our office if I'm not available. So.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. It was an absolute pleasure. I did not cry, so that was a win.
Yeah.
And your information was invaluable.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Look forward to having you on next time.
All right. Thank you.
Thinking about selling your home? Want to put it on the market, but you don't want to go through all of that staging, open houses, those much needed repairs? There's an easy and simple way to do it. Just reach out to Johnny Jennings and the Tom Daves team with Made for More Realty. Here's what'll happen. They'll get you at least 3 cash offers on your home in as-is condition. Sound too good to be true? They've been doing it for a lot of our listeners, and they can do it for you. All you got to do is Google Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty today and get more for your home.
This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
So Matt, I know we're friends, but would you, if you had the option, all things being equal, cost the same, all the, like everything the same, would you want a realtor in your corner, or would you just want to be able to do the process online, like fill out a form, look at the homes by yourself, like a CarMax type of a situation?
Well, it depends on who the realtor is. If it's some strange person that I don't know, then I'd probably prefer the AI, I guess you could title it, online. But if it's someone I know, obviously I want someone to hold my hand. I want them to do all the heavy lifting.
Yeah. Yep.
Otherwise, yeah. So I want some kind of concierge service. I want someone.
The white glove?
Yeah, absolutely. I want them to take
class,
everything.
No,
I don't.
First class,
absolutely
drive a Lexus.
Yeah, right.
So, but that's honestly where arguably the industry is heading, because you think about Uber, right? You're not working with a taxi cab. You're not working with travel companies. You're not, like, everything's done on your phone. It's done on an app, and it's streamlined. And so what happens if, at some point, This is where I honestly firmly believe the real estate market's heading. One, either people are going to rent more, and they're just going to work remote and hop from place to place to place, and be more of a. Go ahead.
So you think that the American dream that's been around for centuries of owning your own property, whether it's land or a home, you think that's going to go away? That's a very strong cultural societal shift that would have to happen, where people no longer have that desire to own their own home.
Totally get it. And
even a financial shift, because a lot of families' finances are tied up in their home.
A lot of families' finances are tied up. But I mean, we could totally, this conversation just is evolving. So as far as finances, most of the reason why the home is worth so much is, yes, property values have increased, but the value of the dollar has gone down. It's a hedge against inflation.
Sure.
So do you really have, and then can you eat that money? Can you buy anything with that money? If you do try to cash in on that, in many instances, especially if you're younger, you now have a monthly payment on top of your monthly payment.
Well, however you want to define the financial structure of that, it's still an innate, I wouldn't say an innate, but it's in the American dream to own your own home.
It is.
So would you say that this next generation, whether it's what do you call millennials or Gen Zers, they are no longer having that desire to own their own home?
I think as affordability remains a barrier to entry, you're seeing more people look into alternative situations. And as more people do that, it becomes more and more normal not to own a home. Well, so-and-so doesn't own their home. So-and-so doesn't own their home. There's billionaires out there who are saying owning a home is a waste of money. And so I'm saying this, you're right. It will be a societal shift, but that societal shift is starting to take place. I would say 5-10 years ago.
So would you say then people will start to no longer have the desire to own their own car? Then are they just going to...
How many people do you know, honestly, that own their own car outright?
You mean without having a monthly payment?
Without a monthly payment.
Right. Well, it's the same thing with a home. You have a monthly payment with a home, but for the most part, 99% of people... Well, maybe it's not that high, but most people either are making payments on a car. I mean, you're not leasing? Are you leasing?
I don't lease, no.
Well, yeah. What percentage of Americans are leasing or just flat out taking Uber? We don't all live in New York City where we could just hail a taxi cab or take an Uber. We all own a car.
But my point is, it's the payment. It comes down to the payment. And so if it's more expensive to own a home, if the monthly payment is higher to own a home, then why not just rent? At that point, now it's making more financial sense to rent than to own. Now, this is down the road. So what I'm saying is I firmly believe a societal shift is going to take place where, one, more people are focused on renting. They're going to focus more on, instead of their home being their asset, putting that money in other things. We're starting to see that, a massive uptick in art. People are wanting to invest in art. Of all things.
But when you own a home, you control that payment. You've signed a contract that, hey, this is what my payment's going to be. When you're renting, you're putting the power in the hands of your landlord, which goes back to Europe and all of that, where the landlords had all the power.
Potentially. So what right now we're experiencing is the insurance companies have all the power. Because if you live in the foothills and you had that fixed payment and now all of a sudden your insurance is $12,000 a year, your fixed payment is not fixed anymore. It's changed.
Well, that's something recent, though.
That's my point, though, is these societal shifts, these little shifts, like saying, hey, a home is not an investment, a home is not an asset, right? These other things are assets. Hey, the payment's fixed. Well, it's not really fixed. Hey, it's cheaper to own than rent. Well, really, it's not cheaper to own than rent right now. And so we're seeing these societal shifts take place. And then layer on top of that the fact that people really just don't like real estate agents. And that at times we're ranked below used car salesmen and lawyers. Like we're not, the real estate profession is not held in high esteem. So most people, if they could remove...
Because, and you've said this before, that I don't know what the percentage is, but it's an easy entry into being a real estate agent. And so you have a large percentage of them that are giving the industry a bad name.
Yep.
Whereas the ones that are doing great and that know what they're doing and are successful are the cream of the crop. And they're the ones you should be looking at, like yourself, not the ones who do it as a side hobby or a hustle and don't do a good job.
Correct. And so that's honestly why real estate agents are like, everybody knows about 10. Every time I go into a listing appointment or meet with somebody, I just assume, hey, they've already talked to somebody else. They know somebody else. And they're always like, yeah, well, we know so-and-so. And that's like, great. Did you know that in 2023, so last year, 47% of real estate agents did not sell a single home. So far in 2024, that number's up to 70%. Roughly about 70% have not sold a single home, and we're sitting here in the last quarter of the year. Okay, 70% have not sold a single house. That means 7 out of 10 realtors who you know, on average, have not sold a home.
Right.
98% of realtors, so you line up 100 of us, 98 of them are selling less than 1.5 homes or 18 homes a year. Like, would you go to a doctor? Would you go to a medical professional? Would you go to a mechanic who works on 18 cars a year? No, they just don't know what they're doing. They're not experienced. And why are more people not using them? That's a red flag. But if that's what the industry, if that's what people are used to experiencing, then of course I understand why they think of us so poorly. But if you can remove the realtor from the situation, that is something that is definitely Like people are wanting that. They want the CarMax type of experience. Hey, just give me a code. I want to go in and see the house. If I like it, here are my terms, and then write it up for me, and we'll see if they're open to it.
Absolutely.
They're wanting that.
I can see that.
They're wanting that rather than contact the realtor. They sit down, they get to know you, then they take you out and show some homes. It's more of a process, more of an interpersonal thing rather than transactional.
I could see that, especially for the younger generation that's a little bit more tech savvy, that likes that type of transaction. But I don't know that folks that are over the age of 45, I would say,
it's just that
wants that
shift.
kind of experience. It's a societal shift, a cultural shift, especially with a different generation. It just depends, the guest that we had on earlier, Christine, talking about the transition of loved ones into the next stage of their lives, right? You guys mentioned that, you can just go on Google and just Google something and find it,
Well, she was worried about that. Yeah,
you could do that, absolutely, but it's a very complicated situation. And so you want a live person, you want a real person. Because don't you get frustrated? I don't know about you, but sometimes I'll get frustrated with some kind of customer service issue, and I want to talk to a real person.
Absolutely.
The automated stuff ain't working for me. I need to talk to a real person.
So when you do get a real person on the phone, right, or when you are interviewing a realtor, there are some questions that you should be asking to make sure that they're not, one of those pretenders, one of those hobbyists, one of those people who got their license, haven't done anything with it, but at a soccer game are saying that, what do you do? Oh, I'm a realtor.
Right.
And so, realtor, right? And then, so here's some questions. What are the average days on market in my area? They should know that. They should know how long it's taking for things to sell.
For sure.
What's the average sales price to list price in my area?
And even if you're not selling or buying a home, just do it for fun anyways.
Just grill them.
Help Johnny weed out the imposters in real estate.
You know how they have the Poo Map? The Poo Map in San Francisco?
Right.
Like you can go on an app and go, there's human feces here. They should have that for realtors.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I interacted with this realtor,
some kind of website that has like a most wanted pictures of these imposter realtors.
Yeah. Or like a broken house.
There you go.
Yeah. What's the average days on market for your listings? So I recently got this question because we always tell our clients, hey, it's your house, your rules. We will help you price the home. We're going to market the home. But at the end of the day, whatever pricing strategy you want to implement, it's your house, your rules. I'm not here to dictate the process to you. And as a result, there are some homes on the market right now that have been sitting longer because they simply didn't listen to us. There's a number of reasons why that may happen, but just you should know what that realtor's track record is. So when you are interviewing them or comparing them to somebody else, you have something like to compare apples to apples.
Right. Smart.
And then what's your list to sell percentage? A lot of people will take listings and then not sell them, believe it or not. And so what that looks like is they put a sign in the yard, it ends up expiring, and the person wanted to sell their house, but the agent wasn't able to get the job done. So what is your list to sell percentage? How successful are you when somebody hires you? How are you able to get the job done? And how many people do you talk to each day about real estate? Are you actively prospecting? Are you actively pushing these people's, like if in the sale of a home, are you actively promoting somebody's home to the community, to your database? And do you have a team or do you work individually? A lot of times people are working as individual real estate agents. It's totally fine. It can be okay. But if they're in a meeting, if they're showing somebody property, if they're in a negotiation situation, if they're on vacation, who's helping you?
Right.
And then just make sure that there's an answer for that. And then here's the humdinger. You can tell I've been watching a lot of Paw Patrol. Humdinger is a character, and Jack loves Paw Patrol. So here's the big one. What other things do you do besides real estate? So, I'm a teacher, or I'm a firefighter.
Or I work in radio.
I
have my own radio show.
If they're doing other things, I have a state job. Oh,
right.
That
is a good question. I wonder what's the most common job that part-time hobby realtors have. What would you say the most common one is?
Most of the time, I would say restaurant. Like bartender, waitress. If I had to guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So, anyways, those are the questions And we went way long.
I know. It's okay, though. Hey, it's good content. Anyways, if you're looking for more information on how to connect with Johnny, whether you're buying, selling, or you want to become part of his team, just reach out.
MadeForMoreRealty.com.